Yeah, hi mate, Richard. Social capitalism. It's a pretty simple thing to describe because we actually all live in a socialist capitalist society at the moment. Some are more socialist and some are more capitalist. Basically what it means is you don't live in a completely capitalist society where it's totally free market and there's absolutely no social safety net for anybody. Basically, if you're out of a job, you're on your fucking own. Even America doesn't live like that. You do have some safety net of unemployment, Medicare, Medicaid. You know what I mean? It's not as if you haven't got the money to look after yourself, bang, once you've dropped out of work or you fall ill, you're not kicked to the side of the road and left to die. That's what true capitalism is. That true form of free what do you call it? Free capitalism is basically the Ayn Rand form of capitalism, which Rand Paul, or maybe not so much Rand Paul, but the crazy fucking Republicans are trying to push on America. You know what I mean? That is capitalism at its purest form. Socialism would be where everything, it's almost like communism, but almost everything would be controlled by the state, that you would need to live your life. You know what I mean? And the price for that would be really heavy taxes. I mean, you would tax perhaps 95% of everything you earn would be taxed in order for the state to provide you with housing, schools, hospitals, food. You would just go into a marketplace and fill your basket with your weekly groceries. That would be total socialism, you know what I mean? Almost like a communist state, but that would be total socialism. What you have is a mixture of socialism and capitalism. You're allowed to keep quite a lot of what you earn, but quite a lot of it is taken in taxes. And that taxation is used to pay for building, public schools, public hospitals. Well, more so in Britain than in America, as I said. We have the national health system. It's free healthcare at the point of use. We have free schooling for children up to 18. No, don't pay for nothing. It's all free, unless of course you want to pay and go to a public school, a private school rather. Then you can do that. You've got the option within the socialist capitalist society to choose where, but you're still going to get taxed. Even if you say, well, I'm going to go send my kids to a private school, you might get a tax deduction for that, but you're still going to pay some tax towards other people's education. You know what I mean? Other people's kids getting educated. We pay a higher level of tax compared to Americans in a way. I think it's 30. I think it's around about 33% on average for ordinary middle class, working class people in Britain is paid in taxation. I think it's about 40% for most people earning over 150,000 a year or something like that. I'm not really sure exactly of the level where it cuts off, but no, it's about 40% for them. In America, you probably pay close to that 30%, but you pay it in different ways. You pay it in not just federal tax and on wages, but you pay it in state taxes. And in a way, we pay quite a chunk of ours in what you would probably call state taxes. We just call it value-added tax, but it's basically a tax which has went from 5% to 20% over the last 30 years. You know what I mean? But that's the structure of a social capitalist society is. I don't mind when I'm working there and earning a lot of money getting quite a heavy burden of tax, because I know that when I'm out of work, or if I'm ill, or I've got a family member who's out of work or ill, some of my tax money is going towards supporting them so they don't starve or end up living on the street. This is what I'm saying by it's a socialist capitalist system. Don't get me wrong, I believe that the system in Britain could be more socialist. We still have people in the poverty line, we still have people living on the street, just not in the massive amounts that you see in America, whenever you hit that crisis. You had tent cities, for fuck's sake, in America, that is just blows my mind. And the richest nation in the world had people living in tent cities. So yous are much more to the on the sliding scale and on the spectrum. Yous are much more at the spectrum of a capitalist socialist society rather than a socialist capitalist society. You believe, or at least your politicians believe, and force upon the people of your country that they're not going to have a larger or an expanded social security programme, social security safety net. They're going to allow some people to fall through that net and just take it as for granted that that's the price you pay for living in a more capitalist society. So, but you still live, even in America, you still live in a socialist capitalist society because there is some safety net. The Republicans are trying to destroy that safety net and do away with the tiny wee bit of socialism you've got in America and become just capitalist. So I'm hoping that describes to you what I mean by a socialist capitalist system. Canada is a socialist capitalist system. All of Europe is a socialist capitalist system. Even China is now becoming a socialist capitalist system, slowly but surely. India is as well. They're all, the world is becoming socialist capitalist, but at the moment, a lot of it is just capitalist. And you've got varying degrees of other totalitarian, communist. I mean, Cuba's a socialist communist country. It's not a totally communist. It's a socialist communist country, and it's even now transforming into a socialist, capitalist communist country. That's going to have a chair with 3 legs on it, see too, because they're allowing some people to actually have an experiment with free enterprise, but they still control quite a lot through the states, and they still tax and spend. You know what I mean? The state still owns a lot. They still have some people owning their own properties and able to spend, and they still have quite a large amount of social spending through the government. You know, so you know that's the easiest way to describe it. If you've got any kind of social structures within your society which is being paid by taxation of the capitalist side of your economies, then you're a socialist capitalist nation. Once you do away with the socialist spending, that is, help for people to get medical attention, help for people to get educated. Once all that goes, once your public schools are all private, once your state prisons are all sold off to private ownership, once you sell your roads off and you pay a toll to drive on them, all that sort of thing. Once all that goes away, that the government doesn't tax to build anything. When you shrink government small enough to drown it in a bathtub, that's when you've gone totally capitalist. So you've got a long way to go yet in America, but we've got an even longer way to go here in Britain. But Thatcher and Cameron today, they tried really hard to drive us further towards capitalism than socialism, and they did a huge amount of damage when they destroyed the unions rather than force the unions to reform and modernise. This is the difference that I see with the Thatcher legacy. She tried to destroy the unions. She didn't try to reform them. Anyway, that's socialist capitalism, mate, and I hope I've expressed it and explained it clearly enough for you. Cheers.